What if I told you that long before London, New York, or Shanghai, there was a city that commanded the waves, a powerhouse of trade and war that dared to challenge the greatest empire the world had ever known? A city that, for its ambition, was burned to the ground and erased from the earth. This isn't a fantasy tale. This is the story of Carthage. Our story begins around 814 BC on the sun-drenched coast of what is now modern-day Tunisia. Legend tells us of a queen, Elisa, better known as Dido, who fled the tyrannical rule of her brother in the Phoenician city of Tyre. She sailed across the Mediterranean, a refugee seeking a new home. When she landed on the North African shore, a local chieftain offered her only as much land as an ox hide could cover. But Dido was clever. She cut the hide into a single, incredibly thin strip, long enough to encircle an entire hill. On that hill, she founded her new city, Carthage, the new city, or as we know it, Carthage. From this ingenious beginning, Carthage blossomed. Its location was a stroke of genius. Positioned on a peninsula with two magnificent natural harbors, it was a gateway between the eastern and western Mediterranean. The Carthaginians, inheriting the seafaring DNA of their Phoenician ancestors, became the undisputed masters of the sea. Their ships, with their distinctive horsehead bows, were a common sight from the shores of Spain to the coasts of Sicily. They weren't just sailors. They were master traders. They brought tin from Britain, silver from Spain, and ivory from deep within Africa. Wealth poured into the city, funding the construction of magnificent temples, towering apartment blocks that reached 6 stories high, and one of the most sophisticated naval ports in the ancient world. The circular inner harbor, the Coffin, was a marvel of engineering, capable of sheltering over 200 warships, hidden from prying eyes. But with great power comes great rivals. As Carthage's influence spread across the Mediterranean, it inevitably collided with another rising power, Rome. The conflict was not just over land or trade routes. It was a clash of civilizations, a fight for the very soul of the ancient world. This rivalry would ignite a series of conflicts known as the Punic Wars, a century-long struggle for dominance. The First Punic War was largely a naval affair. Rome, a land-based power, initially struggled against Carthage's superior navy. But the Romans were nothing if not resourceful. They captured a Carthaginian warship, reverse-engineered it, and built an entire fleet. More importantly, they invented a device called the Corvus Asterisk, a large boarding bridge that allowed their legionaries to turn a sea battle into a land battle on the decks of ships. After more than 2 decades of brutal fighting, Rome emerged victorious, seizing Sicily and Sardinia and imposing a heavy indemnity on Carthage. It was in the shadow of this defeat that Carthage's greatest son would emerge. His name was Hannibal Barca. Legend says that as a young boy, his father Hamilcar, a general from the First War, made him swear a sacred oath upon an altar, to forever be an enemy of Rome. Hannibal would not only honor that oath, he would come closer than anyone to fulfilling it. In 218 BC, Hannibal launched one of the most audacious military campaigns in history. Leading a massive army of soldiers, cavalry, and most famously war elephants, he marched from Spain across the Pyrenees and into the Alps. The journey was treacherous. Thousands of men and nearly all the elephants perished in the snow and ice. But Hannibal's sheer force of will pushed the survivors through. He descended into Italy like an avenging storm, a nightmare Rome never saw coming. For the next 15 years, Hannibal terrorized the Italian peninsula. He was a military genius, a master of strategy and tactics. At the Battle of Trebia, he used the cold and the river to his advantage. At Lake Trasimene, he ambushed and annihilated an entire Roman army in a morning fog. But his masterpiece came at Cannae. Facing a Roman force almost double his size, Hannibal executed a perfect double envelopment maneuver. He allowed his center to buckle, luring the Romans into a trap, then had his cavalry swing around and attack them from the rear. It was a complete and utter slaughter. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed in a single day. The defeat was so catastrophic that Rome was on the brink of collapse. And yet, Rome did not break. It endured. Led by figures like Fabius Maximus, who adopted a strategy of delay and harassment rather than direct confrontation, and later Scipio Africanus, who took the fight to Carthage's territories in Spain, Rome slowly rebuilt its strength. While Hannibal was a master of battles, he struggled to win the war. He lacked the siege equipment to take Rome itself and could not hold the loyalty of the Italian cities he hoped to turn against his enemy. Ultimately, Scipio did the unthinkable. He invaded Africa, forcing Carthage to recall Hannibal to defend his homeland. The two great generals finally met at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Here, Scipio used Hannibal's own tactics against him, creating lanes in his formation to channel the charging elephants and using his superior cavalry to encircle and destroy the Carthaginian army. Hannibal had been defeated. Carthage was forced to accept a humiliating peace treaty, its navy dismantled, its empire gone. But for some in Rome, even a neutered Carthage was too great a threat. One senator, Cato the Elder, became obsessed. He ended every speech he gave, no matter the topic, with the same chilling phrase, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. His words became a rallying cry. 50 years after Hannibal's defeat, Rome found a pretext for a third and final war. This time, there would be no treaty. This was a war of annihilation. The Roman army besieged the city for 3 years. The Carthaginians, knowing their fate, fought with the courage of despair. When the walls were finally breached, the fighting continued street by street, house by house, for 6 more days. What followed was a tragedy. The city was systematically looted and burned to the ground. Its surviving population, once numbering in the hundreds of thousands, was sold into slavery. Roman accounts, possibly exaggerated, claimed they then plowed the ruins and sowed the fields with salt, a symbolic curse to ensure that nothing would ever grow there again. Carthage was gone. For centuries, it remained a ghost, a cautionary tale of a fallen empire. But a story this powerful cannot be completely erased. The Romans themselves eventually rebuilt a new city on the site, recognizing its strategic importance. Today, the ruins of ancient Carthage, now a suburb of Tunis, are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can walk through the remains of Roman villas built atop Punic foundations, explore the site of the great harbors, and stand on Byrsa Hill, where Queen Dido first laid out her city. The whispers of its past are still there. The echoes of its bustling markets, the phantom sails of its mighty fleet, the defiant spirit of Hannibal, and the tragic courage of its last defenders. Carthage may have been destroyed by fire and salt, but its legacy, a testament to ambition, ingenuity, and the indomitable will to defy an empire, was built to last in eternity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more tales from history, and let me know in the comments which lost civilization we should explore next. See you in the next video.